And I think for him, the basic thing was if you understand the concept of marketing and there's a barrier that you have, there are other people that would have those barriers. So once you are put in that responsible position and you have to address the issues of the barrier to drive education for people to understand how they can overcome their challenge to these barriers, then you could probably do better on the job. And I think it paid off. I think it paid off. So I remember my first weekend at Guinness. We're sponsoring one of the whole weeks in the University of Cape Coast. And my boss, Francis, said we should go along. So we set up to Cape Coast on a Saturday morning. We got there just around lunchtime. And she said we should go and have lunch. And she suggested that we had fried rice with chicken. And I was asking her why. And he said, because you need the oil to line up your tummy. But I didn't understand. So had lunch, went to have a rest, and then we got to the event around 7ish. And she said they should bring us cold FES. And at that time, there was a big bottle of Guinness. I don't know whether you remember. It was called...
I don't think I was born yet.
It was called Odeku or Big Boss. Those of you that will remember Big Boss at that time.
Why did they call it Big Boss?
Because it was a challenge to drink Guinness. The regular bottle of Guinness was already a challenge for you to have. It was more expensive than lager. Okay. You needed to acquire the taste. And so if you had a bottle of Guinness in front of you, the perception was that you had arrived, you were better than other people. Okay. So if you actually graduated from the regular Guinness to the Big Boss, it was like you were a boss. So my boss ordered 2 of these Big Bosses.
And you've not tasted alcohol in your life?
I've never tasted alcohol in my life. But it was really cold.
Wow.
It was really cold.
Were you thirsty?
It was lunchtime.
Okay.
No, it was
after lunch.
Yes. It was really cold. And my first sip was like, wow. It went down so easily.
Because you've lined your intestine with the oil already.
It was good. It was, and even the way that they poured, my boss made sure that my first experience with Guinness was a wow experience. So the level of foam that was there, she made sure that it was in a Guinness goblet. The labeling was right, and I was like, wow. So what have I been missing all along? So anyway, I think that night, between my boss and I, we probably did about 6 bottles of Odeku.
Your first night.
Oh yes, and I was feeling good. I was very, very happy. I was very, very. My boss and and the event was good, so it was a great experience. And so yes, I started enjoying Guinness.
Did you feel guilty after you drank, or you were fine?
Not at all.
Okay.
I rather felt the urge to get more people to enjoy that experience. Because there were people like me that weren't aware at the right temperature. Yeah, about the goodness, the power. Guinness was good. So anyway, so moved from Guinness, went to SGSSB. The other time they wanted to get into the cards business, and I had a chat with the general manager at that time, Amma Hamza. May his soul rest in peace. And it was quite exciting, being one of the first brands that was going to put out a Visa card, and I thought that was interesting. So I took up that opportunity. But after a year, 2 years, there was this issue about them merging with another bank, and there was a bit of slowness there. And I had my mentor, my coach at Guinness, Equinifio Koli. When I was brand manager at Guinness in Ghana, he was marketing director at Guinness in Nigeria, and he was the one that had been assigned to me to groom me.
Wow.
So he came to Ghana, and then he called me up. So I went to meet him and we're talking. He said, I hear you're working in the bank. And I said, yeah. He says, don't you miss Guinness? Don't you miss FES? Don't you miss making people happy? And really at that time, because the product that I was supposed to be handling hadn't hadn't
Taken
been
off,
launched.
yeah.
So there was really a disconnect between me and what I was doing and how that was relating to people's lives. So I told him that, say, I miss Guinness. I don't like what I'm doing.
Oh my God.
And he says, I have a job for you. I said, what is the job? He says, I want you to be innovations manager at Guinness. And I'm like, really? So innovations manager was going to be like all the new things that are going to happen as far as marketing is concerned. And I was like, so what are the people at Guinness going to feel? They're like, you come, we'll have a chat. So I met with the MD, I met with the marketing director, and I started working at Guinness as the innovations manager. Did a few launches, Guinness Extra Smooth, the RTDs,
What were
spin-offs.
some interesting experiences you had launching these products?
Well, I think most of the products did extremely well. There was a slight challenge with Guinness Extra Smooth when we launched it at that time, and Guinness Foreign Extra Stout had its own market and has its niche, but at that time the insight that we had was that there were people that were having a challenge crossing into Guinness. So we thought that we could produce a slightly less challenging form of Guinness with all the goodness. So the instead of people drinking lager, they would rather drink Guinness for Guinness Extra Smooth, and then they can then graduate into Guinness. So we did everything to make sure that whatever it is that we're putting out there was not going to be interesting or not going to excite those that were core Guinness drinkers from coming down to it. Because it's going to be slightly cheaper, it's going to be slightly less challenging, it's going to be a bit more alcohol, a bit more volume in it. So we did everything. I mean, and we did all the tests, we did all the researches, and everything was kosher. So we launched this thing on the market, and it just started flying.
Wow.
And at that time, our biggest competitor was Castle Milk Stout. And I think Castle Milk Stout were having a hit. So my information was that they went into a bar sometime and they asked the people that were drinking Guinness, what don't you like about this product that these people have done? And then someone they said, it's too light, it's like water. And within a week, Castle Milk Stout had come out with a campaign about water and, and you see like the clouds are about to break into water. Then so once they launched this water bottle campaign, then the people at Guinness, the people who were drinking Guinness started feeling like, so these people, they take this out of regular Guinness and pour water in it and put it as Guinness Extra Smooth. And that was the campaign that started hitting. It started hitting and hurting the brand. And I guess that was one of the biggest challenges that I had at that time. I mean, eventually we sort of came by, recovered, but it was never the same. It was never the same. So in as much as your research tells you what to do and what not to do, and I think that sometimes you should also go and listen to the people on the streets to find out where you can strike the right balance. And I guess after that I made sure that I was getting right insights, I mean, most of the time from different sources, and then you could from.
How difficult is it to walk away once you're convinced, okay, the formula makes sense, in the lab everything makes sense, the research lines up, but then the reality on the ground doesn't fit it, so you have to let it go? How difficult is
it is?
That
I mean, letting go of Guinness Extra Smooth was a big challenge for me. I remember at that time there were three of us, myself, Richard the Champion, and Regis Amazo, that were working on that brand. And I mean, whenever we had to go and do a presentation to the rest of the team, I mean, as far as all your parameters are concerned, I mean, your research figures are concerned, everything is showing positive. And then when it comes to the actual sales volume, then there's a disconnect. And at the end of the day, the management will be telling us, okay, so you're doing good, but it's not translating into value. So eventually, but the good thing is that in each of these situations, you pick up learnings. So whilst we had called it Guinness Extra Smooth in Ghana, where the Guinness name had led the brand, the learning that we picked, which was rolled out into other markets in Nigeria and Liberia, was to call it Extra Smooth Guinness.
So that it has its own.
Yes. So I mean, just that change of name, one meant that in other markets, they couldn't have the same problem as they had with the Guinness drinkers in Ghana, where they thought it was a lesser Guinness. But it had its own stature, it had its own target, had its own market. And so I guess for us, even though it didn't 100% fly, we had provided such good insights and such good learnings that the whole of the Africa market in Guinness had benefited from what we had learned, and we were able to share and spin our experiences to the other markets where it became such a fantastic product on the market. And so it worked. But yes, it was really difficult to walk away. I remember there were so many times I had to go and negotiate with my boss that, something, give us an extra budget, give us an extra 6 months, and then we'll turn this product around. And myself, Regis, and Richard would work, throughout the night, and we'll be happy on the concept. We'll go and execute. 3-4 weeks later, you see the volumes will pick up, and then it will go down. And eventually, we had to say, something, we'll let it go.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about the telecom industry. How did you get into
so from
that space?
It
was very new. It wasn't the way it is now, right? Where we all know.
Whilst working at Guinness, eventually rose to become marketing manager and then marketing director. And I think just about 2 months after I became marketing director, I got a call from a headhunter that said he wanted to meet up with me, and I said I wasn't interested because I was marketing director at Guinness.
You've arrived.
I'm there, I just my comfort zone.
Not about to go anywhere else.
New products. At that time, Guinness was the imagery of Guinness was solid. We're doing a lot of events. Working at Guinness.
The market.
Working at Guinness was a wow. We're cool. The team was solid. And so this headhunter called me, said, wanted to have a chat with me. I said I wasn't interested. I said, no, just come and let's have a talk. So they were. Then he said, there's a brand that is coming, and he thinks that I should just listen to the people. And I said, what is it? He says it's a telecoms brand. And I said, I'm not interested. Because it just immediately went back to what my dad used to work on. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want this thing at all. And he said, no. So he set up a meeting with me and the MD at that time, and we met. And I don't think it was an interview. I think it was more of a discussion. And I thought that the MD was so cool at that time. He was just talking out of his heart and where he wanted the brand to go and what he wanted the brand to do for Ghana, what he wanted the brand to do for Africa. And I'm like, wow, this would be quite interesting. So we talked, and then we finally agreed. And there were at that time Guinness. The brand was going to change to another brand. They were going to have a different brand name into MTN, from Ariba to MTN. So there was that whole transition that needed to be managed, and then there was a big Africa Cup of Nations that MTN was going to sponsor and host in Ghana, and I thought that was a big opportunity, to learn new things, to get into a different comfort.
But weren't you afraid to leave everything where you've been? Guinness was like family at this point.
I was concerned, but I also thought that it would be a big opportunity to make something happen. Working on a brand that was sponsoring the African Cup of Nations was going to be a wow. And the MTN brand in Africa was one of the best brands. If you looked at the top brands in Africa at that time, it was one of the best brands. And so I think for me, the biggest challenge was trying to get a right team, a team that understood how I worked, a team that understood what it is that the customers wanted, what the clients wanted. So fortunately, I had a discussion with my boss, and he was like, listen, go there, see what team that you have there, and then let us have a chat. So when I got in there, the team that was there was good. I think I only had to bring about 2 more people in, because the team that was there, then they understood what it is that they were doing. But as far as the execution was concerned, I brought him Richard from Guinness.
So you not only left, you also took a
Okay, let me not say I brought it. He came. So Richard from Guinness joined me at MTN. Guido from Guinness joined me at MTN. And then, so we started working with a team that was there. We did the launch from Ariba to MTN. That was good. I guess at that time, Richard and I were asking ourselves, what can we do with this differently? And Richard and I have always lived the brands that we work for. And it was like, what do we do? So we did the thing about the ambassadors, brought Samini on board. And I think with Richard and I were just having lunch some afternoon, and this idea came that why don't we dye our hair yellow?
Really?
Because we wanted yellow to be the ish thing that was.
And you had hair back then.
I still have hair at some very, very sensitive places.
We're still on morning TV.
So Richard and I decided that we'd dye our hair. Actually, a beard. A beard. Yeah, Richard had a bit of hair, but I had.
Oh, so you didn't have.
No, we didn't tell anyone. So we did the full dress rehearsal of the launch the day before.
Did you guys have like maybe Guinness before you came up with this idea, or you were totally sober?
I think we're of a good and sound mind at that time. So just after we had the final rehearsal the afternoon before the launch in the evening, Richard and I drove to this salon in Osu, and we were like, I want to dye my beard yellow. And the guy was like,
are you okay?
There's something wrong. I said, no, I want to dye my beard yellow. Richard said, yes.
Dye my hair yellow.
So we left. We had left the office after like the final dress rehearsal, looking like normal human beings.
Then you came back.
So everybody was thinking about what kind of yellow outfit to wear, yellow shoes, yellow socks, Then Richard and I walk into the office just before the launch, and then this is a beard that is yellow. And anyway, so that was quite interesting. I mean, the MTN launch went quite well. Fantastic brand, got a lot of support from people, Mr. Tobo Mensah, Nokodia. I mean, there are loads of people that gave us such support as far as my career was concerned.
Wow.
So did MTN. Interestingly, at that time, I'd been put in charge of a team that was supposed to be working on ring fencing MTN from any other entrants that were coming into the market, and there was Airtel and Glo that we're looking at. And so we basically worked to try and understand what the Airtel brand was, what the Glo brand was, and what we should do and not do to not to lose subscribers. And that was a great learning experience. Fast forward, I got a call again. We want to talk to somebody else, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to move. Well, this is an interesting brand, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I had a chat. I remember it was a Skype call. It was a Skype call with a gentleman from India at that time, and so I was given an opportunity to work in a bigger market, Airtel Nigeria. It was about 5 times the size of what we were doing in MTN Ghana.
Had you been to Nigeria before then? Had you worked in Nigeria before then?
Well, not worked in that. Been to Nigeria, maybe on conferences and workshops. I did my first marketing training at Guinness at the Unilever Training School in Nigeria. So I knew about Nigeria, not enough information to work on, but yeah, I knew it was a much more aggressive market. It was a much bigger market. So I worked with Airtel Nigeria for a while. Had the opportunity to come back to Ghana to come and help the team to launch the Glo network in Ghana and manage the Glo operations in Ghana. So did that and went back to Nigeria to work on a bigger Glo brand for West Africa. Did that for a while, and I decided to get into my own consultancy. So I came back to Ghana in 2012 and started trying to work on my own consultancy, formed a young team, and we started working. But I think at that time, I had a bit more time on my hands, so I could get much more involved in things other than my core corporate stuff. And I got a bit more interested in governance. And
why?
Because I believe that the level of leadership that we were experiencing in Ghana at that time wasn't what Ghana deserved. And listening to candidate Nana Addo at that time, listening to Alhaji Dr. Baumia at that time, listening to what the issues were. I mean, there were some of the issues that it was very difficult to accept and to tolerate. So when there was this march that was done, Occupy Flagstaff House, okay, then Occupy Ghana was formed, and so we started trying to drive good governance with Occupy Ghana.
What intrigued you about this group? Right, because up until this point, you're just working in the private sector, you're making impact in the sector.
I think for me, it was the commitment to see a better Ghana. It was a commitment to try and make sure that we left a Ghana behind that we could be proud that our children and our children's children were going to be living in, and there were a number of like-minded people that were in that group, and we could do things together. The challenge, however, was there was a lot that was being done as far as criticizing things that were happening at that time. And I remember at one point somebody had a chat with somebody and was like, you're always criticizing, you're always talking about things that have happened that are not good. You don't know what it is like to be part of the frontliners, and when you get there, you know that it's different. And so you don't just get up and criticize. And I think for me, that was also a bit of a wake-up call that instead of sitting back and saying that you want a better Ghana and criticizing what was being done, why don't you offer yourself up for leadership and getting to the front line where you can get into the thick of matters and try and address some of the issues that you are talking about. So that led me into getting into frontline politics. I mean, you always do politics. Even in corporate, you do politics. I mean, you definitely would have somebody that you admire. You have a political ideology that you believe in. You have certain principles in life that you connect or you relate to. And so I put myself up to stand as the parliamentary candidate for Ewutu West.
How was that transition like? So you go from being part of a group that pretty much critiques government, try to hold them accountable, to wanting to now be at the driver's seat. How was that experience like?
Well, I thought deep about this. I talked to a number of people, and I guess what was consistent was like, if you could do it, that would be good. There was no 100% guarantee that it would work the way that you want it to work. But it's better that you go out there and put in your best and try and make it happen than you sit back and you say, I wish I had done it. So I guess that was one of the things that I did. I mean, once my family that was close to me understood what I was trying to do, once the people that I worked with understood what I was trying to do, once my coaches and mentors as far as my career were concerned, were aware of what I was trying to do, I thought that it was worth it. And fortunately, I got closer with certain people like Kwame Nabatels, Elizabeth Ohene, I mean, Bushi Kofi. I mean, there were certain people that we started connecting with and started relating, trying to understand things in a much more better way. And I guess that helped the transition at that time. Fortunately, the people in Ewutu West supported my bid to come and help lead the constituency. So the primaries was successful. The general elections were also successful.
What lessons did you learn from that experience? And how was that different from?
Well, the big lesson is that politics is not like corporate. I mean, in corporate, everybody has their task assigned. Everybody knows how they're going to be measured on. In politics, it's more of a voluntary work, and people work at different paces, and people have different motives as far as politics is concerned. So the way that you manage people in politics is totally different from how you manage people in corporate. And whereas in corporate, I probably would be known as a hard taskmaster, and I want this, and it has to happen. I mean, in politics, if it doesn't happen, there's nothing much that you can do. There are people in politics that you would have to relate to that maybe normally you wouldn't have a relationship with. And you have to work hard, you have to be honest with them, you have to be humble. So I guess those are some of the things that I learned as far as politics was concerned. And for me, I didn't see politics as a vocation. So I didn't see politics as a career. I saw politics more as a vocation, and so it was like you have to be selfless. I mean, it's not about the personal financial fulfillment that you're going into, but it's about what you're going to do to be remembered for tomorrow, what you're going to do to try and work in the wider interest of the political party and the leadership that you've committed to serve. And I guess that's what it was.
Now let's talk about your role as an MP. You recently won the Ghana Leadership Awards Best MP of 2018. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Was that a target you set for yourself, or how did you take that responsibility of being a member of parliament for this constituency?
Well, being a first-time MP, a backbencher, there's no way that I could have set a target of being the best MP. I mean, it wasn't in my goals at all. No, it wasn't. Okay. But I guess God works in mysterious ways, and I guess that when you have a situation where the leadership in Parliament keep pushing you and keep giving you opportunities and keep helping you. I remember the first statement that I made in Parliament. There were so many of my seniors in Parliament that had provided an input into it and had urged me on to make that statement and try to calm you down, to tell you what it was going to be like. The whole leadership in Parliament supported, and you had both sides of the House adding on to the statement that you had made, and that was about the statement about the traffic situation in Kaswa leading up to my constituency, Kaswa Bujumbura, which was having a serious effect in terms of productivity for my constituents and the safety on the roads at that time and what the way forward was. So I guess as far as my parliamentary work is concerned, whatever it is that I've been able to do, whatever influence I've been able to leverage on, was because certain people had identified me and decided to work with me and support me to learn the rudiments of parliamentary work. And I guess that the constituency itself and the region as a whole were supportive of what I was doing. But yes, the award, the recognition of the award, I believe that the biggest beneficiaries are Wotu West themselves, and maybe the political party that I represent, because without the